Hi, and welcome to PJ and the Beard. This is our 19 conversation series. This is conversation number 36. And I feel like I say it every time we have a guest, but, part of this series, we've been lucky enough to get some really great guests on. And today, I feel like is absolutely no different. We're talking to a gentleman today that has built guitar rigs for people like Warren Haynes and Trey from Fish, Peter Frampton, Steve Lukather, Prince, Edward Van Halen. I'll let you get more into that maybe later. But a legend, Mr. Bob Bradshaw. How you doing?
Hey, good. How you fellas doing?
Doing good.
Here we are in the age of coronavirus.
Right.
Wow.
Is this a Corona beard or is this a
totally, man? Oh yeah.
This is a social isolating.
I just kind of went for it. I said, hell with it. I'm just gonna let it go and see what happens. I've never done this before. I've had little things right here, but this is all crazy. And I'm not even trimming it at all. I'm just letting it go. I want to see what happens.
I should have shaved before we got on the air because this is my sorry excuse for an isolation beard, and I've got like.
Oh man, I got mine's up. It doesn't come in over here. It's all patchy and shit, And it's pure white too. It's like my salt and pepper went all salt years ago.
That's right. Hopefully it's low sodium.
Yeah.
Right. I just stopped shaving when this all started too. So
yeah.
Right. So we have some people in the chat already, which is awesome. Just looking here, Terry Himes and Brian Landreth and some names that we recognize from past, that become friends of the show, Pete Hickson, Brody, and some new people. Never saw Soup Music Art Lab before, so welcome, Scott. Welcome.
Oh, Justin, right on.
There you go.
Okay, so somebody you know?
Cool.
Yeah, Scott B. Some other names. That's good.
He's saying serious beard. So one of the things that we've been doing in this series every time it's finding like a little clip of the day, like a little clip of some musician that we show about 30 seconds of. Sometimes it's somebody that Pat knows or I know that we think is maybe unknown or whatever. And we go ahead and we play that. And so I think we're going to start there. If that's all right with you, we're going to start there today, just about 30 seconds of this clip. And I think that clip, I don't want to give it too much preamble. I think that clip will lead us down a road with you.
Well, I'm curious as to what it is.
And so why I'm getting that clip up, I did see Dave Barber and Kristen just jumped in and we were talking about Dave a couple minutes ago.
Cool.
So let me see.
Thanks for hooking me up with these guys, Dave.
You're only about 3 minutes in it. You might not want to thank him 57 minutes from now.
Right. All right, here we go. Clip of the day. Oh, I got to hit that button. Boom.
Buzzard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no good place to stop that.
Yeah, there's absolutely no good place to stop that. Let's go.
Yeah, so that's the great Buzz Feiten. Yeah, a lot of people may or may not. Cool. There was what we normally do is peruse. If we're with a pedal manufacturer, amp builder, we kind of peruse who are their artists. Well, we don't have enough time to even go through the list, let alone play clips. But it's kind of Jason's idea because you had a really early relationship with Buzz Feiten, and and so kind of thought that's a good guy to pick because he himself, luthier, builds guitars, did a tuning system for guitars, a session player, but you've known him for a very, very long time.
Long time. I've been. I was a huge fan at first, and when I moved to Los Angeles in late '78, he and if you're familiar with Buzz's history, one of his musical partners was a keyboard player named Neil Larson. And they had a band called the Larson Feiten Band, and they were playing around Los Angeles at the time. They were actually, I'm originally from Florida, and those guys were local legends around the Gulf Coast area where I grew up in Florida. And they were in that circle of Capricorn Records a little bit. You know, Buzzy played on Greg Allman's Laid Back record. He's the guitar player on Queen of Hearts. And I knew him from there first, you know, when I was growing up. And then I moved to California, and at the beginning of my career, basically, and I met him in clubs, and met Buzzy in a club in California, and just cold called him, basically, in a way. I actually had my girlfriend go up to him and meet him because I was too shy to go near the guy at first, because he was such an icon to me. You know, I loved him. And so my girlfriend went up to him and said, "My boyfriend does electronics, and he can help you with your pedal board and this and that and the other." And because, you know, I was looking at him, and he had this crazy pedal board with all the stuff mounted on it. Remember, this is the late 70s. All the stuff mounted all over it. You know, MXR pedals, a few Boss pedals, some that weren't even pedal form. He had a graphic EQ that was like a Boss graphic EQ that was in a big box. And, you know, back then, the MXR pedals and stuff, they didn't have LEDs or anything on them either. So, you know, you couldn't tell they were on or not, you know. And he had an Echoplex on a mic stand, so it was up where he could reach the slider, you know, and without bending down. But then he was always bending down and dicking with stuff, you know, and messing around with settings. And I had formulated this idea of a remote system for, you know, controlling your effects and everything. And so approached him, and he was up for it, and he was totally into it. He's a tinkerer. He loves to mess with stuff, as you mentioned. You know, he's done a lot of stuff himself, innovative things, you know. So, you know, we struck up a friendship, and he pretty much gave me carte blanche to start developing this effects controlling system. And that's what I did. And it's history from there, you know.
Yeah, it all started with him, right? Like, before that, you weren't.
Did, for the most part. He is my first professional client. I did stuff for a few people, unknown guys, prior to meeting up with Buzzy, when I was just getting into it, but not an actual system per se like I developed with Buzzy. And right. Like I said, he gave me the funds and the means and the go ahead to go for it. And I took it and ran, man. It was great. It was nice. A great time because everything was new, and it was just it was awesome. No internet. Way before the internet. It was nothing like that. I had to get all of my audio knowledge. I went to electronics school in Atlanta, Georgia, but all my audio knowledge I got on my own through books and magazines and stuff. So, and my spark was this series of 3 articles in the back of Guitar Player magazine by Craig Anderton, and who was an educator guy. He's still active today. I think he started. What was it? Remember Harmony Central?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had something to do with that, and he's got his fingers in all kinds of pies. But he had these articles on a concept of a switching system and stuff, and I basically took those sketches, that idea, and went for it and developed my own circuitry, my own way of doing it, kind of based on that that initial concept. So, you know.
I don't know if you can see on your screen, but there's a very special check-in that Jason has kind of featured on there. If you can see that,
What am I looking at?
Jackson Bradshaw says, "Hey, Dad."
Oh, hey, Jackson. What's up, brah?
and then I guess what Soup Musical Art Lab is
Soup
your
is
nephew?
my buddy Dustin Boyer.
Yeah, because
in Los Angeles.
he said hi, and that Mike Landau and Dusty Meadows say hello.
Nice.
Well,
Very
part
cool.
of what you were talking about was this, right? Like, here's two older
Yes,
MXR pedals, and you'd have no
exactly.
idea if they were off or on.
Right. And see, there's a thing. So with that, I wanted to develop a footboard that has individual switches and LEDs on it, and you patch the effects into a remote control audio router, and you only have the footboard in front of you, which is a nice, relatively compact, palette, if you will, of switches, so that you can individually turn on and off the effects that are mounted up in the rack somewhere. Now, it was all pedals at first too. This was way before racks or rack mounting. We didn't even have full on, racks with rack rail. The original system that I built for Buzzy was in a Techniques hi-fi rack, right, that you put your hi-fi components in,
Right.
And it had a slant top on it too, and I had cutouts in the top for an Echoplex, the MXR, or not MXR, but the Boss Graphic EQ, a tuner, and the Dynacomp compressor, because it was a pedal mounted in the top of this thing, cut out in aluminum, so you only saw the the faceplates and stuff of them. And then down below was the audio routing, and some things started coming out that were rack mounted, like Eventide harmonizers. That was one that we started using pretty early on, because these guys, I was fortunate that I worked. I was in Los Angeles, and the studios there, and those studio players and everything were, they had pedal boards, but they were in the studios every day, and they were seeing this cool outboard gear that the engineers were using, and they wanted to adapt, and they would hear what it did to their guitar sounds, but they wanted that because they wanted control over it, So I had to start taking studio equipment that wasn't necessarily designed to be used in a guitar rig per se, and because of the impedances and just the way they worked. A lot of times, like Eventide harmonizers worked in a mix bus configuration. They were 100% wet. There was no way to dial in dry sound in them. It was just a wet effect that came up on a bus on a mixing console. You pull up the faders and you got the effect layered against whatever you're sending to it, Right. So there's that, and so I would implement things in the designs for allowing for these things to work in a guitar system, and all this stuff in the beginning. There weren't any effects loops back then in amps, or they were fairly crude if there were any. Mesas were pretty forward thinking. Mesa amps had effects loops, but a lot of times we were dealing with a lot of Fender amps back then, and a lot of Princetons and Deluxes and Twins, things like that. Marshalls that didn't have effects loops in them. All that stuff came later. So I had to learn how to deal with all that stuff and put it in a form that, like those MXR pedals that didn't have an LED. Now you had a switch on a board that had an LED, so you could tell when the thing was on.
All right.
So
I think that was a
you didn't have to modify the pedal to put any stuff.
Because I think that was a misconception on my part, right? I always associated you with the refrigerator racks, right? Like, how you're going to make these things useful, and big Steve Lukather fan, right? So that's how I probably first heard of you. because of him, like your life is like 6 degrees of separation from Steve Lukather, right? Like Steve begat.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like the lineage in the Bible, right?
Branch of the tree, man, that
Yeah.
sprouted so many other branches. Because all of my work that I've ever done has been word of mouth. I rarely advertise. I don't have a budget to advertise, but I'm a single person here. I've had help in the past, and I have help now, assembly help, things like that. But I've pretty much a lone wolf. Kind of worked alone a lot of times. I did have assistants, but and many people to help me. But I'm a control freak. That's the big problem. So, yeah.
Well, despite your control, we'll probably get to a couple questions here in a minute. But despite your, just now self-proclaimed control freak, you still like partnered with Mike Soldano and John Sir.
Oh, absolutely. John has been a huge.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Rocktron early on. There was another company that I did stuff with. Yeah, definitely. Where I can, I would get help. And John Sir was a major help to me. And we partnered on a company called Custom Audio Amplifiers for a while. We developed the 3+2 preamp together and the OD100 amps before he went off and went to work for Fender and then started his own company, But he was a big help with circuit boards. He was very active and he was very computer savvy early on, which I wasn't. And he helped me a lot with circuit boards, laying out printed circuit boards and stuff. I used to lay out circuit boards with tape, actual tape, the way we used to do it. It wasn't in a program or anything on a computer. It was done full analog, man. It was just, laid out little sticky tape and little donut circles for the pads. And my early designs were all done on that. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of cool collaborations between
John
players.
helps me to this day. He helps me with stuff, especially with circuit boards and stuff. He's still doing that, which I'm very grateful for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always cool to hear. Like one thing we've learned from doing this in like the pedal community and even talking to some amp builders, there is a kind of a really tight-knit community. I'm sure there's competition, but there's a lot more collaboration than I ever would have thought of before we started interviewing people, right? Because it's like you're either Coke or Pepsi, and those two people hold everything close to the vest and they're competing and there's no, blend of that. So I just find it really interesting when very popular names that we know of have collaborated with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really cool that guys like Robert Keeley will, manufacture other people's pedals. And I think John Cusack does that too.
Yeah, we had him on. He said the same. Yep.
Because they've got the power, the setup, the infrastructure, basically, to do that kind of thing. And you can these days you can fairly easily just slip something into your production line, that has a different name on it. This is a different silk screen on the box,
Right.
So. Yeah, that's cool. That's what makes this business fun, and it's a collaborative effort for a lot of people. So it's good.
Oh, that's cool. David Barber just chimed in saying that John Cusack is going to be making some enclosures for him this week. That was nice collaboration there.
So there you go. Yeah,
that's good to hear.
Yeah,
because that was a hard thing to get those.
Yeah, so back there was a name that wasn't familiar to me. Of course, the screen just refreshed. Lester Paul checking in through Facebook saying hi, Bob.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's cool. Like we see names we don't know, and we assume they're friends of the guest. So we always want to make sure that you get to see those, especially since you're on a phone like me, and it's a little difficult to see the comments. So
yeah.
So there was a question here earlier, which I think is probably a great question to ask you. So it says you built rigs for huge stadium tours, etc. Do you have any advice for the weekend warrior when putting together a rig for playing clubs and bars?
Oh, sure. Use high quality cables, my friends, and solder them.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of solderless cable. That's one of the big things for me. It's not hard to learn to solder. You can get a pretty high quality soldering iron for less than $100, a soldering station. You can get the supplies to do it. There's tons of tutorials on the web to show you how to do it. And you'll gain some satisfaction from making your own cables and soldering them and making them reliable. But that's one tip, you know.
And it's true, because I just started doing that. The last board I put together, I did that. I used those new little square plugs. Have you seen those?
They're great. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. And
yep, those are wonderful.
Right.
I use Mogami cable. It's really easy to prep. There's other manufacturers out there, but I'm sure people like all kinds of stuff like Evidence and, you know, the old standby Belden. But yeah, there's tons of good cable out there. Yeah, like I said, I have my preferences, but you know, yeah, I think it's good to do that. So that's one of my main, off the top of my head, one of the things I would suggest. Make your own cables.
I guess staying on that theme then, you know, maybe talk a little bit about like what kind of power supply should people use to get the best results. Because different people some people might have 3 pedals, some might have a giant pedal board. Like, what do you find is the best?
And again, now there is a plethora of options out there to choose from. I definitely insist on using an isolated power supply, one that each tap is galvanically isolated from each other, them and the others. And you know, I have ones with Dunlop. I have something called an MXR power station that came out a few years ago, and since then it's still I still use them all the time because it offers a lot of flexibility for me. It's very robust and forgiving. If you short an output, it's hard to blow them up. They have 9-volt AC as well as DC voltages, 9 and adjustable ones, and 18. Nowadays, there's a lot of higher current pedals, though, that require more current. So that CAE MXR power station may need some help, you know, with regard to those higher current things. But and Dunlop then does have the power bricks. The bricks are cool. They do have a wall wart that hooks them. That's not always convenient for some people, but those that can use those, they're a real good power supply too, that have higher current outputs for things like the Strymon pedals and the H9s and Eventide H9s.
And even pedals like this, probably recommend 18, right? A lot of people talk about
if they work on 18 volts. Any of the Dunlop supplies have an 18 volt tap to use for sure. Yeah, right. Sometimes you get better headroom, make sound a little different. Might be worthwhile to try. But I gotta say, the Strymon Zumas and Ojais and their whole power supply line is phenomenal. It's really, really great, and offers a high degree of flexibility. A lot of guesswork is taken out because every output is 500 milliamps.
That's nice.
Means you could run a wall on the thing, or you could run an Eventide time factor or a Strymon timeline. Of course, you know they're going to run all their totals. But
right.
Yeah, that's and the other thing that I find really good about them is they don't generate any hum or any noise. They don't inject any. It depends. They don't inject any hum for sure. You can mount a pedal on top of them, and even a high gain pedal, and it does not affect it. It's really cool. So those are really, really good for small pedal boards that everybody is into these days.
So it sounds like you just created an absolutely new concept in pedal stacking, like literally gain stacking, put them right on top of each other.
You know, you can do that with us. If a lot of times if you've got a power supply that uses a linear transformer in them, like the pedal powers, the Voodoo Lab pedal powers, they're good power supplies too, but you got to keep them away from stuff sometimes because even though they use a toroidal power transformer, which is a lower radiated hum field, when you're drawing maximum current from these taps on them, the power supply radiates more hum. So if the power supply is not working so hard current-wise, there's a less of a radiated hum field, you see. So when you get that thing pumping and it heats up, it radiates more energy and can cause problems in sensitive effects. Like wahs, a wah that's got a coil in it, most do. If it gets near one of those kind of power supplies, you'll get a hum, but not the Strymons. Strymons seem to be there's not a problem with that. So whatever little elves they've got working in those power supplies, they're quiet.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool.
There's the keyboard.
What about the cabling from the power supply to the pedal? Do you ever make your own there, or is it just using the stock one?
Yeah, I do that too because I never know what links I'm going to get. But I got to say again, I hate harping on these guys, but the cables that come with the Strymons are really good. They are a jacketed cable. Okay. That means that they're not like a zip wire type cable. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The side-by-side wire, they're round jacketed. Like, I know you can't see this, but if you can, this is like a zip cord, like a lamp cord, but it's a little cable for a power supply, looks like that on the end. But the Strymons are round, jacketed, and they're heavy duty, and they're really good. And you can cut them. You can splice them and then shrink tube them back together again because the inner wires, it's a jacketed cable. It's got a black and a red wire inside that are, insulated from each other, but then a round insulation on the outside, you see, like a coaxial cable, basically. Well, it's not coaxial because the cables are side by side. But anyway, they're good. And,
when you make your own,
I find myself making longer cables all the time because, especially in rack drawers, a lot of times you can't use the cables that come with power supplies because they're just not long enough. They're assuming you're going to mount the pedals on a pedal board,
right,
which is generally the case. But if you got to put them on a rack drawer and then you've got to go to a rack-mounted audio switcher or router, then the cables are longer, because I usually put those down below. The switching is down below, and the drawers are above them. You see.
Is that something you solder as well, then, when you make those?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jackson
Everything
Bradshaw.
is soldered. Can't do it any other way.
Jackson Bradshaw chiming in again, saying he's got a nice 6-pedal custom audio electronic pedal board made on a skateboard sitting right next to him.
Absolutely. I built that out for him when he was playing in bands back in LA.
Nice.
He's with Nashville Ballet now. He's in the company at Nashville Ballet. So he's working it, man. He's doing good. He likes Nashville.
Nice. It's a nice place.
Yeah.
Somebody called it a mobile board.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a little bit because I'm just, we're in Central Pennsylvania, right? So those of you listening in, we're literally probably an hour from each other, right?
Right.
And we talked a little bit about Rock Lititz yesterday and maybe a little bit the day before. And it's just stunning that has been like planted in Central Pennsylvania, like in the middle of Amish country, right? So we have a guy that we're talking to that has worked with some of the names we've already dropped and a bunch more, has now found himself leaving Los Angeles and coming to, again, Amish country, more or less. And
Sure did.
kind of learned that. So maybe just as we're kind of looking at that, you could just tell us maybe briefly what got you from LA to Lancaster, basically, Lititz.
Well, okay. I'm going to back it up a little bit too, because this is a funny story. And we were talking about my my old pal Buzz Feiten. Buzzy, when I built his rig for him, he said one day in 1982, he goes, "I'm going on the road with Olivia Newton-John. I want you to go with me because I'm taking this rig and I want you to be my tech for it." And there's another guitar player too named Mike Landau that's coming out on this thing. Are you guys familiar with Mike?
I am, yes, because I was Lukather, Huff, Landau, all those guys.
Yeah, okay,
very
good.
Familiar. Yep.
Well, Mike Landau's on that too. And also Popwell, the amazing bass player who played with the Crusaders, the Jazz Crusaders with Joe Sample.
Larry Carlton, yeah.
Larry Carlton, absolutely. Pops is amazing. He goes, "I want you to go on the road with me on this tour." And I'd never been on the road before. I'm going, "Okay, let's. I want to do that. That'll be fun." And they go, "Okay, but we're doing production rehearsals, not in LA." I go, "Well, where we're going?" "Well, we're going to this place called Lititz, Pennsylvania. At Tate Towers." And I went, "What? Okay." And so I signed on for this. The production manager, I got a ticket. They flew me to Lititz in 1982.
That's not a direct flight, by the way.
No, I know. I got here in a puddle jumper. Basically.
Yeah, probably an Amish buggy at some point.
Yeah, they took a horse and buggy.
I don't know if it was Harrisburg or Philly. I don't remember.
Right.
I flew in a puddle jumper to Lancaster Airport, and here I am in these cornfields, and I'm looking around going, "What the hell is this?" and they take me to Tate, and where the stage was set up and where we rehearsed. And so we were there for probably, I don't know, a few days or a week, I think. I don't really remember, but I do remember coming to Lititz first in 1982. Okay, fast forward. 2016, the end of 2016, I was living in in a loft space downtown LA, and it was getting way too expensive to live down there. And for me, it was just it was rough. It was too much. I had been in there exactly 10 years, and this was. Yeah, late 2016, yes. So around September. So my landlord goes, he's raising my rent. It was like out of control. I had to leave. So he was basically throwing me out, and I was ready to go. I was so tired of Los Angeles. I'd been there since late 78. Now it's 2017. I'd had enough. I had to get out of there, and I didn't know where I was going to go. Jackson, my son, who's on here, was thinking about going to Philly Ballet. He was going to try to get in the company in Philly. And so I thought, oh, that's cool. And I knew Chad Taylor with Live, and I go, well, that'd be interesting. If Jackson moves to Philly, let me find out what, York and stuff is like, because, Chad's got this beautiful studio in York, Think Loud. He's a champion of that place. He talks it up all the time. Maybe I didn't want to go to Nashville. It's enough. I don't know. I just didn't want to. And New York was too much for me. and because I'm moving everything, I'm moving my life from Los Angeles cross country. Never lived on the East Coast before, so I go, Chad, what's it like? I call him up. I go, Chad, what's it like in where you're at? You know, I'm thinking about making a move, and he goes, I got the place for you. He had already reserved space here in Rock Lititz. This was it was not finished, you know. It was wide open. I mean, it was gravel on the ground. It was an enclosed space, but it was not built out.
Mm-hmm.
His wife was opening a yoga studio in here. He was going to move Tone Tailors, which he is a partner in, here. He says, I got a place. He was thinking about actually even opening up a rehearsal facility in here at first. So he goes, come out here. I'll put you up. I'll take you around. You'll see what it's like. But we got a space for you in this facility if you want to move here. And I go, wow, that sounds great. So I come there. I stay at Think Loud. The facility's got apartments in it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I come out there, I check it out. I go, this is cool. I meet the guys at Tone Tailors, super good guys. I think this could be the thing that I could do. Now, you know, I haven't moved in 39 years. You know, I've only lived in Florida, Atlanta, and LA in my life. Now I'm making a big move here to, you know, Lancaster, basically. So I go, okay. I make the decision. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I had to be out by, this was in September. I give notice in like October, November, and I had to be out by January 1st. And so then the wheels start turning of getting a truck to move and moving everything. My shop, I was actually living in my workspace. So I had a live workspace. My family, I don't live with, I don't live with I'm still married with my wife and I don't live together, but my wife and other son live together. And Jackson, who's on here, was moving across country too. Turns out he didn't go to Philly Ballet. He went to Boston. So he now moves to Boston. He's already in Boston when I'm making the move. He's been in Boston almost a year before I make the move to Philly, I think. That's how it went. Anyway, he subsequently went to Nashville. But so I moved here. And so started this journey, you know, this place in Rock Lititz. And Rock Lititz has been amazing facility for me. It's been perfect, a perfect symbiotic relationship with, you know, these like-minded companies that work in the touring industry, you know. And there's nobody like me in here. There's which is fine. There's Tone Tailors in here now. I have a great relationship with them. We share a door. They have a great store. They're building their inventory all the time, getting new product lines in and stuff, growing. And it's a great regional store. You know, it's like, it's not necessarily a boutique store, but it's moving in that direction, kind of. You know, it's getting more. It's not LA. You know,
right?
We're dealing with regional musicians and stuff here that aren't necessarily. You know, it's clearly not a major marketplace for music yet. You know, it's not Nashville, it's not New York, it's not LA, but it is what it is. and it's growing, and there's a lot of forward-thinking people here. So
we were trying to explain.
There's no place in the world like this,
right?
Which I like being a part of.
Well,
I like that.
We were trying to
in my game, it's pretty cool. So
we were trying to explain to people the other day about Rock Lititz a little bit, and just I mean, it's kind of like a destination. Like if you're going to go to the guitar store, you're not stopping at the guitar store because you're out shopping. You're going to the guitar store, and like there's just a picture of one of the buildings, and
that's Pod 2. Yeah, that's 250,000 square feet building. Full. I'm in there along with other manufacturers. There's everything in there. There's a restaurant in there. There's a brew pub in there. There's a urgent care facility in there. There's a there's a gym in there. Tour supplies in there. A company that caters to the touring road supplies and things. Rocket Cargo is in here. Control Freak is in here that does all of the computer stuff for a lot of the shows. Pyrotech is a company that does all the fire for a lot of shows. It's just all kinds of stuff in here. It's just there's a restaurant in here. Gravy. It's fantastic. Really cool.
So you get to go ahead, Jason.
If you look at this picture, just for people that are paying attention, look in the background, and that's what you're driving through to get there. And this is Pod 2, and I don't know in these pictures.
Yeah.
If they show.
Yeah, the big like soundstage one. People are like, it looks like a meat
right
processing
there.
factory.
See the places in blue. You see the yellow is the stuff that's already on campus. The blue stuff is going in and going in like now. The building now. They've been building during this quarantine thing. They got a variance or something from the governor. They can keep building, so they're building more. You're showing Pod 2. There's a huge purpose-built soundstage across the parking lot, and another thing. And another thing across the parking lot next to the soundstage is a 139-room hotel that just opened last year. So road crews come in here. Artists can come in here. There's these penthouse suites in there that are beautiful, that have everything you need. For you can cook a turkey in there, man. It's amazing. Literally. I mean, there's kitchens and stuff in them.
So. In the chat, they're asking, so if you were going on a big tour, what would you be doing? What would you do at Rock Lititz to prepare for that tour, I guess?
Well, you'd load into the production facility, either Studio 2, which is a smaller 5,000 square foot room for smaller bands. Baby bands could move in there. Stay at the hotel. You've got Clare Brothers here. Take towers to build your stage. You've got Clare Brothers for sound. Everything is right here and available to you in a moment's notice. I'm across the hall. Tone Tailors is here. You need strings. Oh, you ran out of strings. Tour supplies here. You need gaff tape and batteries. Go get it. You need to ship something out. You got Rocket Cargo right here. It's everything needed to put on a show, a professional show, is here. It's all here. So it's, and you can get a lunch. Have lunch and gravy
and a beer. I was trying to explain this right the other day. I was harkening back to a time, and I realize now that when you're working with the Edge, you did his touring rig for the Zoo TV tour. Which that tour they actually staged at Hershey Stadium because there wasn't maybe the whole situation there at Rock Lititz. So, and where are you going to get a stadium on the East Coast to prepare for a major tour? So they basically
was that Zoo or was that Pop Mart?
I think that was Zoo. I'm pretty sure that was Zoo TV.
Zoo production rehearsals were in Winter Park, Florida.
So maybe it was the other one, because I thought it was Zoo TV where they had like.
They probably built the stuff here and then they shipped it there because Winter Park, the arena, and because that was an arena tour, it wasn't a stadium tour.
Mm-hmm.
The arena, that was the opening show, the show date. The tour started there, so that's what often happens. What'll happen here is the show will get built. The production will get built up here, and maybe bands don't always come through here. It's usually just the production. If a band comes through and they set up in here, then they do, and they do, but not always.
Right. So
depending upon the act. So but the staging and everything will get built here. The room will go up. They'll test PA and lighting and everything. Then they'll put it in trucks and move it to the first venue, set it up where the first show is going to be. You might have another week of production rehearsals there where the show gets run through, Then
Right.
they do a show, then they move out.
Nice.
So, that happens a lot. So Hershey was, I think they did that with Elton here, I think, or Allentown maybe. It was one or the other.
Right.
They moved it from Rock Lititz here to there and started the tour and did production rehearsals there with the band.
Yeah, so Jesse Martin was saying, I appreciate the shout out, Bob. Just kind of one other comment, right? Like, because I think if I did my math right, which I'm horrible at math because we're doing a 19 conversation series and we're on conversation 35, so we clearly don't know math. But when Toto came to town to the American Music Theater, were you here then? Did you get to see Luke? And you get to scratch
when was that?
Oh my gosh, I thought it was about 2 years ago. So I just didn't know if between the rehearsals.
I did not know that. I would have gone for sure, but no, I got here, like I said, in 2017, and I was out summer of 2017. Well, just for 3 weeks with John Mayer too. So,
okay.
I did a little bit of his tour when I built the rig for him for that tour.
There was a question pretty far back, Jason. Sorry, it was about someone who owned. I think it's right here. I bought an OD100 head in 1998. Best amp I ever had. I kicked myself for selling it to make some money. Do you make a pedal or anything that like reproduces that sound?
There's no such thing as a pedal that can reproduce the sound of an amp, and I don't care what you say. I mean, that just cracks me up when people say that.
Amp in a box.
Let's take this pedal that's a Dumble pedal and plug it into my PV Bandit, and it'll sound like a Dumble. No, it won't.
Puts the dumb in Dumble.
Come on, some of us that will never play a Dumble can wish, though.
I mean, that stuff cracks me up. I mean, I don't know. No, I don't think pedals sound like amps.
Right.
Unless it's a emulator, or something like that tries to, and even then it's a.
And was the OD100 he's talking about? Was that one of yours?
Oh yeah, that was a John Sir and I developed that. Maybe John's thing. And he continues to make them. He makes them called a PT100 or something. We developed the OD100 amp initially for Mike Landau, and and it's an offshoot of the 3+2 preamp that we did as well. And so OD100s are they're fairly I guess I'd say rare. They're not that well known because we really didn't have any advertising muscle to really push it, and they weren't sold in Guitar Center,
Right.
So we didn't really have that push, so it really didn't get up. But John still sells the PT100, which is a version he does with
Pete Thorne. Right?
Pete Thorne,
Yeah.
But the original OD100s, and I owned the right to manufacture and built them for a while. When John left, we dissolved the Custom Audio Electronics or Custom Audio Amplifiers company. I retained the right to manufacture the preamps and own that to this day.
Oh, man down.
Still there?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
We are. Did you get a text message?
We back?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
Hello?
Yep. Oh, maybe you can't hear us. You might have to go back and come back out.
We have him. He might have to do that. He might have to go out and come back out. Let me send him a...
He's going to send him a private message there. Oh, because this happens to me every once in a while. I had to learn the hard way, putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, because a call or a text will kick you out. Even if you can be seen, you can't be heard. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No.
What do we do?
So he sent him a message. Hopefully he'll be able to see it pop up there. Kind of checking in. Guitar Hack jumped in. What else did I miss here? Lots of conversation in the chat. We'll work on getting Bob back officially.
Let's see if that works. Send him a text.
Okay, send him a message, see if he gets it. Yeah, he'll just have to go back and come back in, which I had to do a million times. Oh, there's his text. You've got mail.
If he doesn't get back in a second, I'll mute myself and give him a call and see if we can get him back.
Oh, he just popped back out, so maybe he's going to come back in a second. So think of some questions, right? We're at the 51-minute mark, and he said he can wind him up and watch him go, but definitely want to get to your questions, because I would just get into a big name-dropping fest for the rest of the time, just about stories, but be more interested in giving you guys a chance to interact with Bob Bradshaw. So, again, thanks. Is he coming back?
All right. Can you hear us?
Go. Yeah, somebody called me. And how do I block that from happening?
You have to go out to your settings and do, is it Do Not Disturb?
If you swipe down from the upper right-hand corner on your iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh, poop. I don't know. Maybe that's not it.
Nah.
We're broadcasting our ineptitude right now.
Yeah, I have to go into Do Not Disturb, which I don't know if you can swipe away and come back and have everything work, but
yeah, let's just continue on.
Okay.
Where were we?
That's a good question.
So
OD100s.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, amps. So no such thing as an amp in the box.
I sold the right to manufacture the OD100s to John Sir, and so he still does them. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great amp. It was really, really good. It was very simple, and you couldn't get a bad sound out of it.
Yeah, Lester Paul chiming in again, saying they have the OD50 and it'd peel the paint off the wall. Lots of horsepower.
Yep. It's a really, really great amp. But yeah.
So you have
still own two of them.
You have a couple people saying things like, asking. I'll give you a couple things you can pick with you. Do you have any Prince stories? Somebody said they'd love to hear. Brody said he'd love to hear about the rig you built for Clapton. Brody's a big Clapton fan. You might actually, if you run into Brody in the airport, think you ran into Clapton.
What do you want me to start with?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a huge Warren Haynes fan, so any of those guys would be fine. But whatever you want.
Warren's great,
and I love Lukather, cool.
So yeah.
So we're gonna go till 8:00.
Prince. How about Prince? Because
Sure.
there's not much. Because I did a lot of work for that guy. Built a few different systems. All commissioned by his tête du jour, or I think one of them was commissioned by Susan Rogers too, his engineer. I believe. But one day, and this was probably back around 2005 or something like that. I get a phone call at the shop, and I answer the phone and I hear, "Please hold for Prince."
like the White House was calling.
I know, right? Yeah. Now, mind you, it's been years since I built stuff for him, or I do different things, but I never met him. He was supposed to come to the studio when we were doing some things, and he never did, of course. He's in Prince time, so never ever met him. He spent thousands of dollars with me. I've built bunches of stuff, even a vocal rig,
Wow.
with pedals and stuff to process his vocals. So it's huge. Mic pre in it and stuff, and a microphone in the shape of a pistol.
I saw that YouTube video not too long ago. You built
that?
I saw that in the YouTube video. It was with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something.
Yeah.
And he was using that microphone shaped like a pistol. I just saw that recently.
Gold. Yeah. So anyway, please hold for Prince. And he goes, and so I hold, of course. And Prince comes on the line. Hello. Talking. Hello. Cordial, very nice. Soft spoken though, but kind of a deep voice, So,
deep voice on that 5'4" frame.
And he wanted me. He was thinking about. He wanted an amp with his name on it, and he wanted me to build him an amp that he could market with his name on it. And I was just like, well, I'm kind of out of that game. I don't really do amps anymore. I could put you in touch with John Sir, maybe. Yeah, okay. Didn't really go much from there, but we talked a little bit, and I go, I built a lot of stuff for you, and I don't even remember what he said, but he just wanted an amp that could do what he wanted it to do, I guess. I don't know. Right.
Well, was he using his name then, or the symbol? Like, what would you had to put on?
I think it was TAFCAP. Yeah. Yeah. I think at that time. Yeah.
Nice.
So, but that's the only interaction that I ever had with him.
Right.
That was all pretty fun.
So Clapton was the other one people were asking.
Clapton. This is fun. And it ties in with Lukather. Back when Eric was doing the Behind the Sun record, he was doing this in LA, and this was during his Armani suit period, And what was the tune off of it?
Brody will know.
What was it called? Forever Man, I think it was called. It was written by another songwriter guy, Jerry somebody.
Like J.J. Cale or somebody? Yeah.
He was in, not J.J. Nope. Okay. It wasn't J.J. Cale. It was this other songwriter guy, Texas guy, I think. Anyway, he's in L.A. doing this, recording this record. And Steve Lukather finds out from, I think Lenny Waronker was producing it. And Russ Titleman, maybe the pair of them, I'm not sure. He gets hold of Russ. He goes, "Get me on that date. I want to get on. I'll play rhythm guitar. I don't care. Just get me. I want to work with him. I want to meet him." And he did it. Got him on. So Luke's going in to work on this Clapton record, playing rhythm guitar basically. And so, of course, Luke brings in all his gear, and it's my rig, and and Clapton sees it. Now this is the time. This was like mid '80s, and I'm on fire. It's like I'm doing tons of rigs for studio guys. Rock guys are coming in. It's just before I meet Van Halen, which spawned a lot of the rock guys, who I met through Lukather. So I get a call. Luke goes from Lukather going, "Come down to the studio. Eric Clapton's here. He wants to meet you. talk about you putting a rig together for him. I go, okay, sounds great. So I go down to the studio and I meet Eric. He's a nice guy. He sits down in the chair at Luke's rig, and he's staring at a buttload of buttons on the foot controller. And he starts to play a little bit. He's a little intimidated, and he's kind of looking down, and he starts hitting a bunch of buttons, and noise starts coming out, and he starts hitting more buttons. He's like, trying to get the sound to stop because he was like turning other things on that probably shouldn't have been on or whatever. Anyway, he got the gist of it, and he ordered up, and I built him a little rig, and he used that thing for quite a few years, and he said he loved it. I put a tri-stereo chorus in there, a couple of delays. I think this thing actually went up for sale in an auction in England a few years ago. I think I saw it, parts of it. It got parted out. But there was a bunch of stuff in there that was popular at the time, And he was a good sport. He was a good sport about it. He used it, loved the tri-chorus. That thing was, I went and saw him live at Universal Amphitheater. Luke and I went, actually. And he was using it. I still have a little section of it in a Dunlop poster advertising the wah pedal because for the Crybaby. And there's a little sliver of the foot controller on stage in this poster, and there's Clapton in his Armani suit and everything,
So there was a question in the chat. Do you remember, from Brian Landers, do you remember if you had a client that you had to put plexiglass over the controls to keep it from changing the settings?
I don't recall that, but I know guys put clear Visqueen over their foot controllers so they wouldn't get spit and sweat on them and beer,
Right.
And you would just push the buttons through the plastic. But yeah, I think a few, there may well have been people that shouldn't have touched the knobs. That's for sure.
Right.
That's very true. There are people that like that. Some that are scared to death of it, but they have it, and their tech's running for them.
Yeah, Brody said he sold that rig at the Crossroads auction.
What's that?
The Clapton
rig.
Oh, yeah.
The Crossroads auction that he does that big festival and stuff for
the rehab. For the rehab center, in Antigua, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we're at the hour mark. I mean, I'm taking Jason's thing here, but I was just curious if there's something you're working on now, right? We've seen, since you've been maybe in that space at Tone Taylor's, did something for Trey Anastasio, and you've done something for Joe Perry while you're there. Is there something you're working on right now that you can talk about?
When I came in here was for U2, another rig for Edge. It was the first thing I built.
I have a feeling that would be a pretty serious rig too.
It was the smaller rig. It did everything that his main big rig would do, but it was condensed quite a bit, scaled down rig. It was for doing TV shows and promotional things and stuff like that. Where he didn't want to have to bring his whole big rig, but it had all the fractals in it and all a bunch of pedals in it, all the main ones that he uses for stuff. And Trey was another big one. Warren Haynes, I rebuilt Warren's rig after 20 some years. I never built his original rig. I sent him the components, and
Farmer
Dave at Techstar in Nashville put the rig together. But I was able to take and redo his rig and do it myself. Do it the way I wanted to do it. And
how great was that?
That was probably 2 years ago, just after I did Trey's rig. And what was that? Was that 2018?
I don't know. I was following you on social media, you and Tone Tailors, when you did Trey's, because I saw that pop up, but I never saw you. Got to be more. Make sure you get those pictures up there for us geeks.
Yeah, I do. I gotta do that. I did John Mayer at Think Loud when I got out here. That was probably the first major rig that I built when I moved here. But then when I got in here, like I said, Edge. I'm currently working on Mick Mars's massive new rig for Motley Crue for the upcoming tour. You can see it in the background there, I think. See that?
Yeah, I did see that when you walked. Yeah.
That big double wide there. Yeah. That's going to be a big one. Joe Perry's was fun. That was last year. Elvis Costello I did in here. His was interesting. Yeah. Interesting multicolored foot controller that he wanted to do. It's got a crazy wrap around it that looks like a clown's birthday party. A clown threw up on a pedal board. Crazy.
Are the switches like little clown noses?
No, but they should be.
That squeak.
Look at that picture I have on the wall of it right now. It's funny. Actually, it's pretty cool. Different,
Nice.
But that's what he wanted.
So during this quarantine time, sounds like you're still able to keep working. You've got the stuff you need. Your supply chain intact, and
pretty much. Yeah, it's been all right so far. Although it has slowed down quite a bit. There are certain things that I need to reach out and get that I'm a little uncertain of. But yeah, it's been okay. I work odd hours now. There's nobody here right now in Rock Lititz, really. There's just a few. The Tone Tailors guys come in though and do shipping because they have a web presence too.
Right.
So they do that kind of stuff. So I see some people, but a lot of times, man, I work from home. I have a little workshop in a room at home that I can work from if I want to bring stuff to do. And I'll come in at 4, 5 in the afternoon sometimes and stay till midnight or 1. And then I really don't see anybody.
Right.
Because I'm in a bit. I don't have any. Mine is basically a little sliver of a space in here. I work alone primarily, so it's no harm to anybody, so I'm not interacting with any people necessarily, and you can't see me in here from the street. I don't have any windows.
True isolation.
Yep.
You're like, is there a pandemic going on? This is what I call Tuesday.
I know, right? Yeah, I could be in here and not know what, time of day or night it is if I didn't have a clock.
So Brian asked, he said 2 things. Said, first of all, it's been amazing to have you on and to thank you for everybody in the chat. So,
thanks everybody. Very cool.
And then he also said, is there any chance after the plague that Pat and I could come down and do a tour of the campus sometime?
Absolutely. For
So
sure. Definitely. You must.
Yeah.
You must come in here.
And
it's a cool hang, man.
It's funny because I was down there. I'm trying to think. Because the last time I was down, my wife and I forget where we went, but it was like days before this started. It was still at the point where there was nobody there. Tone Tailors was open. It was on a Saturday. The other businesses weren't open. We went to the bathroom, but they had things kind of cordoned off. And I can remember washing my hands and not wanting to touch anything. So it was right at the point, it was maybe about 2 or 3 days before that weekend before everything shut down that we were in.
Yeah. They have a lot of events in here. They rent out the common area for corporate events, and they'll rent the studio behind me and for corporate events. They got to keep, stuff coming in here. So a party will blow through here, they'll have some kind of a get together in the common area, and Gravy will cater it or something, and they'll have I don't know, like homecoming stuff for schools and everything in here, and you'll be walking to the bathroom or something, and there's a party going on with balloons everywhere, and then when it's over, whoop, everything goes right back to normal. I mean, they don't wait around. The cleanup is like immediately after, an event is over with. So, because there's tenants in here, and
right.
It's not our party.
We've talked about having the guys, one of the guys from Tone Tailors actually on. Maybe that's something we ought to do too. It might be a good time to get them on, because they do. You're right. I mean, they have, for a guitar shop in Lancaster in our area, and you said not boutique like maybe in LA, but for this area, they carry a huge pedal line.
Absolutely.
They carry some great guitar lines, and it is a little different than what you normally find.
The time. They're growing like crazy, So, I mean, you gotta get stuff in that's gonna sell, and with the web presence and everything too, that helps.
Right.
And they're really good. They're really good at the social media.
Yes. That's what I was gonna say.
They're getting better. I mean, you'll find a lot of stuff. If anybody wants to look at any other stuff that I've done, look on the Tone Tailors YouTube channel, because I'm in there too. They're good at that. They got people. If I'm doing a video for something, I'm not working on something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a little harder for me. I don't have enough people, but they come in and they will document stuff for me, and then they'll put it up on their deal. So,
right.
You can find stuff there.
And I put the link to their website down in the chat. So if you want to go to the Tone Tailors website and kind of look through that and see what's going on with that, and then I'm sure they have a link to their
YouTube thing.
Yeah, I'm sure if you just search YouTube Tone Tailors, you'll find that. Maybe we'll get that's an interesting story too, how that is all come together, and so
yeah.
But yeah, this has been great.
Yeah,
this has been awesome. Ray Santana pipe. This is going out to YouTube and out to Facebook, so it's kind of in both places. And Ray Santana from Facebook saying, "Great interview." He's a friend of ours that has been on the show before and stuff too.
Oh, cool.
So,
right on.
So, what did we miss? I mean, it's now. I'll tell you. First of all, I'm going to say this before I ask you what we missed. Pat and I, when we do these, we try and do some research and go out and find out about people and watch some stuff. So I'm about halfway through. There's a great interview with Bob. Not to send people to other people's channels, but we don't care. We just do this for fun. And if you want to learn more about Bob, there's a great interview with the Tone. What did they call that show? The Tone
Talk. Yeah, I just did that a couple weeks ago.
Right, and so there's I think that's about a 3-hour interview.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
And so the story of how
we're gonna do another one someday too. It's crazy.
The story of how Bob got to Tone Tailors. I mean, he told a good bit of it today, but went into it even deeper there. It's a really enjoyable interview, and if you want to learn more about Bob, I would highly recommend going out looking at that. But what
Especially
do we?
If you got the time these days,
right?
Right.
If an hour of distraction isn't enough, there's 3 more.
right.
Waiting for you.
Is there anything that we missed? Because one of the things I've been finding too when we do these interviews is we get done, and then 2 hours later, I'm thinking back to what we talked about.
Oh,
and I'm like, why didn't I ask that? What's the thing that I should?
What are we going to want to mention? What do we miss? I don't know.
I got a quick one.
Okay.
Pat has on a shirt that says "That Leslie Sound." I have a shirt on that says "Tremolo." We did a series on Leslie pedals. We're getting ready to do a series on tremolo pedals. You've put so many rigs together throughout the year. What's your favorite kind of Leslie pedal? What's your favorite kind of tremolo pedal?
Well, I like my Super Trem. I made years ago. It's in a half rack format. It's a little outdated now. It doesn't have tap tempo or anything, but it had some pretty cool features for the time. And it was a real nice opto tremolo that I thought sounded great. You could switch between two separate rates and depths, super high headroom, worked really nice. And, you know, I built that and made those for quite a while. My favorite Leslie pedal was always the CLS 222, which was actually in a rack mount form. It was one of the best ones that I ever heard. And it was made by Dynacord. That's what it was.
Wow.
And it was called the CLS 222. Really good one. Worked great. It was like, they're like a German company or something. I don't know.
This speaks volumes. I did a search on your tremolo pedal. There was only one listed on Reverb. It sold for $649.
How much?
$649 is what it looks like.
That's
It's
what I'm saying. That's right. They're rare and desired.
Right.
What can I say? Yeah, there was there's other Leslie pedals though too now these days. You know, what was it? The DLS one was good, I think.
Yeah, Dave Cicito's been on the show and sent us one to try out.
Those are cool. I like the Lex from Strymon. Those aren't bad.
What's tremolo?
You know,
right?
You know, Cusack's Tappa Whirl's really cool.
We have that one.
You know,
Warren uses the tube rotosphere, right?
He does. The rotospheres are cool, I guess, but they're kind of noisy. You know, there's a tube in there just for fun, I think. They're big. They're really big. They're cumbersome, but they do sound pretty good, and he uses them well. You know, so there's nothing like a real Leslie, though.
That's a true story. This is where Jason slides his chair over a little bit, and you look behind him.
What for the Leslie?
Yeah, there's a Leslie 16 sitting behind.
There you go.
I don't know. Yeah, there's one back there behind.
Yeah.
So I guess my parting question is, again, the people that you have worked with have been some of my guitar heroes and all of that. Is there somebody that you haven't worked with that you would like to?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Or maybe unfortunately someone might have passed before you maybe got to work with them. Just any one of those things.
Probably those.
I mean, not talking about getting a DeLorean and going back in time necessarily, but you know, who
yeah. No, I'd like to work with guys like Jack White, you know, or Auerbach, you know, Dan Auerbach. Those guys would be fun to work with, probably new modern type guys, you know, that are forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could do things for them. I could easily do things for them. They could use my help. But
well, because wasn't there some quote?
I'm just saying to consolidate things and make things, you know, nice.
Right. Wasn't there some quote that the Edge had been looking for you since 1983, but he didn't know it, or something like that? You know, that he didn't know that you were the one he needed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I did talk to his tour manager at the time, Dennis Sheehan, early years, a few years. Yeah, like it was around 83. When he called me and was asking me about what I did, and I didn't meet him eventually until 86, maybe. I think it was
you said the Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree,
yeah,
original Joshua Tree tour.
Mm-hmm.
When I met him. Yeah,
nice.
And then we finally got together and finally did stuff for Zoo. Zoo was my first start. It was like 91, 92.
Gotcha.
But yeah, some of the guys that probably aren't necessarily aware of me, but should be.
Right.
Nice modesty.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
A lot of times it's hard to get through to those kind of people because they're protected by their quote unquote team.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done stuff for a few guys like that. I thought it was interesting that Elvis Costello gave me a call. That was real interesting. Put that one together. That was a cool one. It was fun. Nice. And some interesting little things, But he's the basher,
So not the least of being the paint job in that particular one.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well,
there's a lot of people in the chat saying great show, and that's solely because of you. Thank you
well, thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
for coming on and doing this. We appreciate everybody that hung out with us. That's kind of why we're doing it. So
yeah.
Hopefully we will be able to get down to Rock Lititz, maybe should be able to share a little bit more information on an episode or something in the future. That'd be really cool.
Come on down anytime, fellas.
I'm a big fan of the all access lanyard. So if you just might want to print one of those up, we'll just wander around the campus.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right. Again, thank you so much for doing this.
You bet, fellas.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. And, the word legend is thrown around pretty loosely these days, but truly you are a legend in what you've done.
That's I'm still alive.
That's right. Imagine how famous you'd be when you're not, right? But that's usually when people's careers take off.
Last year, I had heart surgery last year, so open heart surgery. So
yeah, that's true. I did see a picture of your scar from your chest being wide open. Yeah, you're doing well though.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah,
came out of it okay and better for it. So
that's good. Well, we do appreciate you coming on, and 40 years of experience trying to cram any of that in an hour is crazy, but it was a pleasure to meet you. We look forward to actually meeting you in person, and
likewise,
it's been a great honor for us to have you on. So with that, I'm PJ on behalf of the Beard, reminding you, no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear. It's my Kevin Eubanks chord.
A lot of people saying thank you. I'm hanging up, but a lot of people saying thank you. David Barber said, love the information about Costello. You guys got to hook up. You're close together, Dave.
Great.
Like 40 minutes apart. So. All right. Have a great one, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
Good weekend.
You too. Thank you. See you.
Bye.